Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Got to pick the energy level up. It's 4 o'clock. My name is John Wood. I am the founder of a group called Room to Read. I'm really excited to be here this afternoon. How excited am I? I think this photo will give you an idea of how excited I am to be with you this afternoon. I used to work for Microsoft here in the region, and one day my life came to an abrupt change in 1998 when I went off to trek the Annapurna Circuit in Nepal, an 18-day trek in the Himalayas. There was a rumor if you went high enough in the Himalayas, you could escape the sound of Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates yelling at you to work harder and to crush the competition. So I went off to Nepal to escape Microsoft for a few weeks. While there, I met a headmaster who invited me to come see his school. I thought, great, an opportunity to see the real Nepal, not the trekkers in Nepal. The school, like many schools in the developing world, was both hopeful because kids were showing up, but rather sad, rather pathetic. You look at the infrastructure here, the fact that there are dirt floors, the fact that the walls are crumbling, the fact that there's no light, no ventilation, the fact that kids don't even have desks. The headmaster then said, "You've seen the school, now come see the library." And I got excited. How many of you were library nerds as kids? Yeah, like about 90% of you, my kind of crowd. I thought the library would be a place where kids with big smiles on their faces were reading books, right? That's what a library is supposed to be. Naive assumption on my part, not the first time a Microsoft executive had made a naive assumption. In this case, the naive assumption was because the library was completely devoid of books. They didn't have a single colorful children's book in their library, despite having 400 students. And I asked the headmaster why, and he said, "Well, in Nepal, you have to understand, sir, we are too poor to afford education. But until we have education, we'll always remain poor." And that struck me as a topic sentence of poverty. Every one of us probably has a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent who broke the cycle of poverty through the power of education. Thankfully, though, the headmaster was an action-oriented optimist, just like me. He spoke a sentence that would forever change my adult life. He said, "Perhaps, sir, you will someday come back with books." This sentence has cost me so much money. But it was all okay, because I had told him I would do it, and I went back a year later. I had this vision of having so many books that I would need help, that I would need to have donkeys, or perhaps even have yaks, perhaps have more than one yak, perhaps have a fleet of yaks, a flotilla of yaks, a gaggle of yaks, what I would later call the full frontal yak attack, going into the mountains of Nepal with books for kids. My 73-year-old father needed a retirement project. My mother needed my 73-year-old father to have a retirement project. He went with me. We were getting the kids. We were telling the kids, "You're all going to queue up, and we're going to give you the books, and you're going to carry the books in the library." And the queue thing really didn't work very well because these kids had never seen brightly colored children's books before, and they were like stage diving. It was like a mosh pit. It was like literacy palooza. These kids were, nobody got that reference, okay. Lollapalooza? Okay, never mind. This was a scene that would change my life forever because I thought, why don't I keep doing this? Why don't I do this more than once, more than twice? Why can't my future be in the Himalayas, opening libraries at a rapid rate? And so I went back to my desk at Microsoft China, where I ran business development, and I said to my boss, "I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear, and I'm going to leave for the day, and I'll come back tomorrow. We can discuss it. I quit." And I walked out, and I bought my freedom, and it was a very pricey decision. And my coworkers were all super supportive. Everyone was, really thinking I was having a midlife crisis. I was arguing I'm 35 years old. I'm too young for a midlife crisis. I thought it'd be crazy not to go do this with my life. Why? Because 780 million people in the world are illiterate. Because over 150 million kids woke up this morning and didn't go to school. And because 2/3 of those who are out of school and 2/3 of those who are illiterate are girls and women. And we can't ever help to have a fair world when almost 800 million people can't even read or write, to be lacking that fundamental empowerment. So we started this little thing called Room to Read in 2000. To be clear, when I left Microsoft, I wasn't a gazillionaire. I didn't have enough money to actually, it wasn't going to be like the John Wood Foundation where I'd start shoveling money out the door. If you do that, everyone wants to have a meeting with you. We were just a little cash-strapped, unknown NGO called Room to Read. Despite that, we set what one of my favorite business authors, Jim Collins, Good to Great fame, calls a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And that was to say, let's reach at least 10 million children during our first 2 decades. Yes, we're a startup. Yes, we have no brand identity. Yes, we're a bunch of people, a group run by a bunch of volunteers. But other than that, why is this a bad idea? Why can't we reach 10 million people? So we got started. My co-founder, Dinesh Shrestha, a Nepalese guy, said, first of all, John, enlist the local community. Don't be one of those NGOs that sends a bunch of well-meaning people from Switzerland or Norway or America over to Nepal and says to the local people, step aside, we're going to build you a bridge, we're going to build you a school. He said, the local people deserve to have skin in the game. You need to have the local people believe in something called sustainability. So we set up what we call the Challenge Grant, which is very simple. We'll help you, but only if you want to help yourself. So the early projects looked like this. You had Tanzanian villagers coming out and building the walls on their schools and building the walls on their library. You had families coming out in Nepal digging the foundations. You had families in rural Laos coming out. And this is really self-help. This is us giving a small amount of money to help get the library open or help get the school open, but it's local people taking control and really feeling that sense of empowerment, that sense of wellness, of knowing that they are helping their kids to get educated. And that has to make every parent feel really good when it's actually them being part of the solution. Now, on top of that, then we still needed money. We had a lot of schools to build. We had a lot of libraries to open. So we started something very simple. I'm a simple guy, called Be Cool, Adopt a School. We told people everywhere, companies, individuals, really close friends like my friend Rana Chow in row 1. We said, you can adopt a school and have a sense of ownership, not ownership that you own it, but ownership that you own the result. You can go visit it, you can go see it, and this is the vision. For companies like Salesforce, for companies like Google, we basically said, you can open as many libraries as you want, and we'll give you a chance to visit it. You can take your family, you can take your kids, you can meet the beneficiaries, meet the parents. Most importantly, if you like, you can put a nice dedication plaque on the wall and dedicate the project to a loved one. This became very popular because a lot of people decided they were going to dedicate schools to their mother on her 60th birthday, to their father on his 70th birthday. And a lot of my friends told me, you know, if you suffer in your family from sibling rivalry, this is like the nuclear option. The siblings have no idea what hit them. So all of a sudden, all these people were like, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do one school in Cambodia. Let's do one library in Nepal, whatever it might be. The next challenge was very simple. We were giving away a lot of books in English, but we were not giving away books in the mother tongue. And of course, every child not only deserves to have literacy in their mother tongue, but it's usually a prerequisite for getting literacy in a second language and a third language. The challenge was the for-profit publishers do not publish books in languages spoken by poor people. Why would you? There's no market. But 2 billion people live on $2 a day. And for those 2 billion people, think about $2 a day, what you have to do. You have to buy food, clothing, shelter, medicine, etc. for your kids. You don't have money for books. So there's no books in the mother tongue. Well, there weren't until we started. In 2004, we looked at our motto, which is GSD, which means get shit done. No excuses. Let's figure out how to become a publisher. Let's go find the J.K. Rowling of Cambodia. Let's find the Dr. Seuss of Nepal. Let's find the Tintin of Tanzania. And again, let's not impose a solution from outside the community. Let's work with local authors and local artists like this gentleman you see here is a Jordanian artist who helps us to print books in Arabic so that refugee families from the Syrian war have their kids having high-quality literature in the Arabic language. We've now done this in 35 languages using local authors and local artists. What does that look like? Well, I want you to imagine for a minute you're not here at the Global Wellness Summit. I want you to pretend you're an 8-year-old girl in Cambodia, a 6-year-old boy in South Africa. You know that something magical is going to happen on Monday morning because your school library is opening. You don't know what to expect. I'm going to show you 50 books in 50 seconds so you can enter that world of these kids. Please enjoy this. So what do you think? Have we found the J.K. Rowling of the developing world? I want to assure everyone out there who's worried about the lost baby elephant, please don't freak out. All of our stories have happy endings. So that's very, very important. For us, our happy ending was in 2004. We did not even know how to publish. By 2012, UNESCO had given us their Confucius Prize for Literacy because we've now produced over 1,700 original titles using local authors and local artists so that they can be part of the solution. It's been very exciting for us. As a charity, we believe in measurement, measurement, measurement. You may have noticed the Nobel Prize in Economics this week went to 3 academics who actually have pioneered gathering data because it may make us feel good if we do charity, but it makes us feel good. It doesn't help others unless we can actually measure what we do and be able to know that it works. With funding from my first Microsoft boss, Melinda Gates, thank goodness we kept in touch, we've been able to put together a world-class database and team doing monitoring and evaluation to actually test the efficacy of our work. You can see it on our website. What gets measured gets done. Let me show you just a couple of things we've been able to do. First of all, on the girls' education front, girls' education is very important to us. As I mentioned, 2/3 of those not in school and 2/3 of those who are illiterate are girls and women. We, of course, believe that when the world is full of a generation of educated, kick-ass women, that's when things change, right? We see that looking around this room. But it's got to start with education. We've got to make sure every single girl everywhere can realize her potential. And I'm very proud to say with a lot of corporate support, a lot of Pat Dwyer is going to talk about purpose-driven partnerships, a lot of purpose-driven partnerships, we have been able to take this program to new levels. We put 6 girls in school in 2001 on long-term scholarships, guaranteeing them they could stay in school through the end of secondary school with our support. They'll be the first in their family to do that. We give them life skills coaching, we give them mentoring, we give them homework helping, and we started with 6 girls. By the end of this year, we'll have over 120,000 girl scholars in the program. It's really exciting for us. Super exciting for us to see how far this program's been able to come. Now, you'll notice in this picture there's some boys, because I want to be really clear that we're not anti-boy. As a former boy myself, I would never want to be accused of being anti-boy. So we talk a lot about the importance of girls' education, but we, of course, don't overlook the boys. When we open a library or build a school, that benefits boys as well as girls. And we've done, again, this idea of adopting a school has just totally caught on. We've been able to actually work in 2,500 villages to help them to build, upgrade the schools that they have so that kids have a nice environment to learn in. Of course, schools don't teach children. Teachers teach children. So we have to make sure we have professional development for teachers, like this young woman you see here in Zambia in our program. And I'm very proud to say the Room to Read's local team has now helped 40,000 teachers to improve their skill levels of running libraries, how they teach literacy, how they coach girls to understand the career options that they may have. And this is working really well. We know this because 89% of our graduates who are girls, almost all of whom are first in their family, have moved on to one of 3 places: university, tertiary education, or full-time employment. So that is a really nice thing because we know that when a girl earns a marginal dollar or a young woman earns a marginal dollar, she spends 90% of it on her family, on food, clothing, shelter, medicine, education. Men are often not quite as enlightened in how we spend our marginal dollars, so we're better off making sure that we have women also finishing secondary school. I mentioned the first load of books, the first donkey load, the first yak load was 3,000 books. I'm proud to say we've scaled way beyond what we ever thought possible. We've now put over 22 million books in the hands of eager young readers. So we're super excited about that. Now, the second big, hairy, audacious goal we gave ourselves was to beat Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie opened 2,500 libraries during his lifetime, and it's widely considered to be one of the greatest philanthropic interventions in human history, what Carnegie did. We looked at Carnegie and said, his numbers are not big enough. We're going to beat Carnegie. Not only going to beat Carnegie, we're going to beat Starbucks. We're going to emulate the private sector and try to open outlets as fast as the private sector opens outlets. Now, that seems crazy, right? We can't pay what Starbucks pays their executives. We can't access the private markets for debt capital we can't IPO. You can't IPO a charity. We offer stock options and only pay off karmically in the afterlife to our employees. Can we possibly out Starbucks Starbucks? Hell yes. This is Starbucks post-IPO. Number of outlets open in green. Blue is number of room-to-read libraries. We are actually out Starbucking Starbucks. So take that, Howard Schultz, and write us a really large check, please, so we can continue to beat you. In all, Carnegie, 2,500, Starbucks, da-da-da-da. We've now opened 35,000 libraries across 17 countries. From a startup to 35,000 locations is what we've been able to do in the last 18 years. And a lot of that's driven by purpose-driven partnerships, which is how I'm going to close. To date, 17.6 million kids have access to our program. So I mentioned earlier 10 million by 2020. We actually reached our 10 millionth student in 2015. By the end of 2020, we will double the BHAG. By the end of next year, we will be operating in 20 countries. We'll have 20 million kids accessing the program. And from there, we're going to try to go even bigger. This is a question I often get asked. Do you miss it? I mean, I do miss the credit card where you never saw the bill every month. But do you miss it? And I think it's fair to say that this picture was not taken at the opening ceremony or the launch party for Windows version, whatever we're on now. This is, thankfully, my new life. So much of this has been driven by what Pat's also going to talk about, purpose-driven partnerships. I've written 3 books, and the one I released last year is called Purpose Incorporated, Turning Cause into Your Competitive Advantage. I've got some copies here if we would like a gift copy. Just come find me afterwards. The idea behind this was that Room to Read has seen in the early years of companies turning from their sole focus being profits and EPS and shareholder value and all that stuff that Milton Friedman told you was the only thing that mattered, to actually moving towards purpose-driven partnerships where companies are profitable, but they are also showing that they can do social good and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Companies like Tatcha, a beauty brand that, like Room to Read, once upon a time was just a little unknown startup. And Vicky Tsai and Brad Murray, the 2 co-founders, said, our marketing is going to be simple. We're going to tell every customer that every time you buy a product, you get a beautiful face. Every time you buy a product, a girl in the developing world gets a beautiful future. Every single product, every single SKU, every channel, every day, forever. They said every product generates 83 cents to Room to Read. Why 83 cents? Because 83 times 365 is $300 US. That's all it costs to have a girl on long-term scholarship, $300 US. They started small, but they ramped up, and I'm proud to say by the end of this year, Tatcha will have funded 3 million girl days of schooling. 3 million. That's one company. That's the power of purpose. Let me close. I've got 2 minutes and 12 seconds left with a story of one of these 17.6 million children Room to Read's benefiting. Our team in India and Rajasthan took this photo of a young chap in a library reading a book, very focused. They interrupted his focus, not a good thing to do, but they interrupted his focus to say, hey, why do you have that medal around your neck? And the young boy responded by jumping up and running away. And they thought, oh no, we've scared him with these inquisitive questions. And one of the teachers said, oh no, he got that medal for being in the school play. And he's really proud, so he's actually gone home to get his costume. And he's going to come back and show you his costume. So we waited a little while, and they learned the whole story. It turned out these kids had read a book in their Room to Read library about Gandhi and the Great Salt March. And they decided to actually do a reenactment of the Salt March. And so now they're going to do a reenactment of the reenactment for the local Room to Read team. They're quite proud. All progress grinds to a halt as young Gandhi Ji returns to school. Gandhi Ji comes back ready to march. You got to love this because he looks exactly like Gandhi with the exception of his Gandhi glasses, which were stolen from Michael Phelps or Ian Thorpe, I'm not quite sure. But there is young Gandhi Ji, and here he is reenacting the reenactment of the Great Salt March. This is what happens when kids have their imaginations fired from a young age by books, by teachers who care, by Room to Read staff who cares. This, to me, is what the future needs to look like. I want to propose that in this lifetime, we simply end illiteracy. And we end gender inequality. We take 2 of the most pernicious problems holding the world back and say, no more illiteracy, no more gender inequality. I know we can do this in our lifetime. I see it every day when I visit our work in the field. Like this young chap in Sri Lanka is so convinced of the importance of reading, that he's inculcating the habit of reading in his stuffed animals. Even his stuffed animals have books open in front of them. We see it where we work in refugee camps in places like Jordan and Lebanon. We see the kids and their excitement. We see the kids and the zeal they have for education. There is nothing holding back this generation except for apathy and indifference and lack of action. My goal is very, very simple. It is to say to every single child in the developing world that never again will anybody be able to tell you you lost the lottery of life. Never again will anybody be able to tell you that you were born in the wrong place at the wrong time and you therefore will not get educated. I think we should say to every single child, you were born in the right place at the right time because we were there for you, and we're not going to stop until we reach every single child without exception in this lifetime. I will leave you with this closing thought. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.